Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the air as consciousness slowly returned. Eyelids fluttered open, revealing unfamiliar surroundings. Plush leather chairs, gleaming mirrors, and the unmistakable scent of hairspray and nail polish permeated the space. A moment of disorientation gave way to panic as realization set in. This wasn't home. This was a salon? Naomi's heart raced as she tried to piece together how she'd ended up here. The last thing she remembered was that she had a male body walking through the front door of Glamour Girls, clutching a certificate for a full-body makeover. Everything after that was a blank. She attempted to sit up, but something felt off, very off. Her body moved differently, felt heavier in some places and lighter in others. Naomi glanced down and froze. Her waist nipped in dramatically before flaring out to wide hips. Long, toned legs stretched out before her, ending in delicate feet with perfectly pedicured toes. "What the?" Naomi whispered, her voice coming out higher and softer than usual. She scrambled to her feet, nearly toppling over in a pair of sky-high stilettos. Gripping the nearby counter for support, she stared at her reflection in shock. A stunning blonde gazed back at her, full lips parted in surprise. Expertly applied makeup accentuated high cheekbones and wide green eyes framed by long lashes. Golden hair cascaded past her shoulders in soft waves. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of hallucination or dream. Naomi pinched herself hard, wincing at the sharp pain. No, definitely not a dream. Heart pounding, she stumbled towards the bathroom, narrowly avoiding crashing into a row of hairdryers. She burst through the door and locked it behind her, gripping the edge of the sink as she tried to steady her breathing. "Okay, think," she muttered to herself. "What's the last thing you remember?" Images flashed through her mind. The certificate arriving in the mail, proclaiming her the winner of a contest she didn't recall entering. The decision to cash it in on a whim, figuring a day of pampering couldn't hurt. Walking into the salon, the bell chiming cheerfully as the door swung shut behind her. Then nothing. A complete blank until waking up looking like a completely different person. Naomi splashed cold water on her face, half expecting the makeup to run and reveal her true appearance underneath. But when she looked up, the flawless visage remained. "This can't be happening," she whispered, running her hands through silky blonde hair. "How is this even possible?" A knock on the door made her jump. "Everything all right in there, hun?" A woman's voice called. "Your treatment's all finished up. You can head on out whenever you're ready." Treatment? Is that what they were calling this complete transformation of her body? "I'll be right out," Naomi called back, cringing at the unfamiliar voice that came from her throat. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. There was only one way to get answers. She had to go out there and confront whoever was responsible for this. Naomi unlocked the door and stepped out, wobbling slightly on the stilettos. The salon looked different now, emptier with most of the stations tidied up for the night. A middle-aged woman in a white coat stood near the reception desk, beaming at her. "Well, don't you look absolutely gorgeous?" The woman gushed. "I'd say this was one of our most successful transformations yet. How do you feel?" Naomi gaped at her. "How do I feel? I feel completely freaked out. What did you do to me?" The woman's smile faltered slightly. Now, dear, there's no need for alarm. This is exactly what you signed up for, remember? A complete makeover from head to toe." "I signed up for a haircut and maybe a manicure," Naomi shot back. Not this!" She gestured wildly at her new body. "I assure you the contract you signed was quite clear about the extent of the changes," the woman said, her tone growing cooler. "Perhaps you should have read the fine print more carefully." Naomi's mind reeled. Had she really agreed to this without realizing? No, there was no way. Something sinister was going on here. "I want to see this contract," she demanded. "And I want an explanation for how this is even possible. People can't just change gender overnight." The woman sighed, reaching for a file on the desk. Very well, though I must say your reaction is quite disappointing. Most of our clients are thrilled with their results. She handed Naomi a thick stack of papers. Here's your copy of the agreement. As for the how, well, let's just say we have access to some very advanced technology. The details are, of course, proprietary. Naomi flipped through the contract, her heart sinking as she saw her own signature on the final page. The legalese was dense and confusing, but phrase like complete physical transformation jumped out at her. This can't be legal, she muttered. I assure you it's all above board, the woman replied. Now then, unless you have any other questions, I really must be closing up for the night. Your new wardrobe and personal effects are in that bag by the door. I suggest you take some time to get used to your new body before making any rash decisions. Naomi's head spun. This was all happening too fast. Wait, how long will this last? Can it be reversed? The woman's smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. The changes are quite permanent, I'm afraid, but don't worry, you'll adjust quickly. They all do. With that, she ushered Naomi towards the exit, pressing a small purse and a large shopping bag into her hands. Have a wonderful evening, and enjoy your new life. The bell chimed as Naomi found herself unceremoniously deposited onto the sidewalk, the salon door locking behind her with a decisive click. She stood there for a long moment, the cool night air raising goosebumps on her bare arms. The street was quiet, with only a few cars passing by. In the distance, she could hear the faint thumping of music from a nearby club. Reality began to sink in. She was stuck like this, at least for now. No money, no phone, no idea where to go or what to do next. Panic threatened to overwhelm her once more. Get it together, she whispered fiercely. One step at a time. Naomi opened the purse, relieved to find a wallet inside. Her old driver's license was there, along with several credit cards in her name. There was also a phone, the latest model smartphone, already set up and unlocked. She scrolled through the contacts, dismayed to find them all unfamiliar names. Her old friends and family were nowhere to be found. A text message popped up from someone named Tiffany. Hey girl, can't wait to see you at the club tonight. Your new look is gonna knock 'em dead. Naomi's brow furrowed. She had no memory of making plans or knowing anyone named Tiffany. It was as if an entirely new life had been constructed for her, complete with its own social circle. She was tempted to ignore the message and find her way home. But then again, did she even have a home to go back to? Would her old apartment still be there? Would anyone recognize her? The thought of facing her old life in this new body was terrifying. Maybe it would be easier to play along with this fabricated existence, at least for now. It would give her time to figure things out and decide her next move. Decision made, Naomi typed out a reply. Thanks. See you soon. Which club again? The response came almost immediately. Cosmos! Duh! We always do ladies' night on Thursdays. Don't be late! Naomi took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. She could do this. One night out, gathering information and getting her bearings. Then tomorrow, she'd start unraveling the mystery of her transformation and finding a way to reverse it. She hailed a cab, giving the driver the name of the club. As the city lights blurred past the window, Naomi tried to quell the butterflies in her stomach. She was about to step into a world she knew nothing about, pretending to be someone she wasn't. But really, wasn't that exactly what had been done to her? Her entire identity had been stripped away and replaced without her consent. The least she could do was turn the tables and use this new persona to her advantage. The cab pulled up in front of a sleek building with a line stretching down the block. Pulsing music spilled out onto the street each time the door opened. Here we are, miss, the driver said. That'll be $25.50. Naomi handed over some cash from her wallet, tipping generously. Might as well make use of whatever funds this new identity came with. She stepped out of the cab, wobbling slightly on her heels before finding her balance. A group of young women near the front of the line waved enthusiastically. Naomi, over here! Taking a deep breath, she plastered on a smile and walked towards them. time to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. "Oh my God, you look amazing!" a petite redhead squealed, pulling Naomi into a hug. "The makeover was totally worth it. I still can't believe you won that contest." "Thanks," Naomi replied, trying to match the woman's enthusiasm. "I can hardly believe it myself." "Well, come on," another girl said, linking her arm through Naomi's. "Let's get inside and show off that hot new bod of yours." As they swept past the velvet rope, Naomi's mind raced. These women clearly knew her, or at least they knew the version of her that had been created along with this new body. How extensive was this deception? How many people were in on it? The club was packed, bodies pressed together on the dance floor as music thundered through massive speakers. Naomi let herself be led to the bar, where a round of colorful cocktails quickly appeared. "To Naomi's transformation?" The redhead, Tiffany, Naomi guessed, shouted over the music. "May all your dreams come true." They clinked glasses, and Naomi took a small sip. The fruity concoction was stronger than she expected, warmth spreading through her chest. "So," one of the other girls leaned in close. "Spill! How does it feel? Everything you hoped for?" Naomi hesitated, unsure how to respond. What would this version of her say? What had been her motivation for entering the contest in the first place? "It's overwhelming," she said finally. "I'm still getting used to everything." The girls nodded sympathetically. "That's totally normal," Tiffany assured her. "But trust me, in a few weeks you'll wonder how you ever lived any other way. Now come on, let's dance." Before Naomi could protest, she found herself pulled onto the crowded dance floor. The music pulsed around her, and she felt strangely self-conscious in her new body. How was she supposed to move? What if she looked ridiculous? But as she watched the other women around her, swaying and twirling with carefree abandon, something shifted. It was as if her body knew what to do, even if her mind was still catching up. Naomi closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. Her hips began to sway, arms lifting above her head. For a moment, she forgot about the strangeness of her situation and simply existed in the moment. When she opened her eyes again, she found several admiring glances directed her way. A tall, handsome man caught her gaze and smiled, moving closer through the crowd. Panic fluttered in Naomi's chest. How was she supposed to handle this? She had no experience flirting as a woman, let alone dealing with male attention. "Hey there, beautiful," the man said as he reached her. "Can I buy you a drink?" Naomi opened her mouth to refuse, but Tiffany suddenly appeared at her side. "Sorry, handsome. Girls' night tonight. Maybe another time." She whisked Naomi away, leaning in to whisper, "Trust me, you do not want to deal with guys until you've had more time to adjust. Baby steps." Naomi nodded gratefully, letting out a sigh of relief. "Thanks. I guess I'm not quite ready for all that yet." Tiffany squeezed her arm. "No worries, hun. We've got your back. Now come on. Let's get another round." As the night wore on, Naomi found herself relaxing despite the bizarre circumstances. The alcohol helped, as did the genuine warmth and friendship the other women showed her. It was almost possible to believe this was her real life, that she had always been this person. But as they stumbled out of the club in the early hours of the morning, reality came crashing back. Where was she supposed to go now? Did she have an apartment? A job? "You okay to get home?" one of the girls asked, concern evident in her slightly slurred voice. "Yeah, I'm fine," Naomi lied. "Think I'll just grab a cab." After a round of hugs and promises to meet up again soon, Naomi found herself alone on the sidewalk once more. She pulled out her phone, relieved to find an address listed under home in her contacts. The cab ride was mercifully short. Naomi tipped the driver and stood before a modern high-rise apartment building, key fob in hand. This was apparently where she lived now. The doorman nodded politely as she entered, showing no signs of surprise at her appearance. Either he was in on the whole thing, or this really was her regular home. Naomi took the elevator to the 14th floor, finding apartment 1407 without difficulty. The key worked, and she stepped inside, flicking on the lights. The space was beautifully decorated in shades of gray and purple, with sleek modern furniture and abstract art on the walls. It was nothing like her old cluttered studio apartment. She wandered through the rooms, taking it all in. The closet was filled with designer clothes in her new size. The bathroom counter held an array of high-end makeup and skincare products. Everything a glamorous young woman could want. Naomi caught sight of herself in the full-length mirror and paused. The events of the night had smudged her makeup slightly, and her hair was tousled from dancing. But even disheveled, she looked like a model stepping off a runway. "What am I going to do?" she whispered to her reflection. The adrenaline and alcohol were wearing off, leaving exhaustion in their wake. Naomi stripped off the tight dress and heels, pulling on a silky nightgown she found in a drawer. She crawled into the enormous bed, sinking into impossibly soft sheets. Despite her whirling thoughts, sleep claimed her almost immediately. Naomi's dreams were a confused jumble of images, her old life and new blending together in surreal ways. She was running down endless corridors, trying to find her way back to her true self. But every time she thought she'd found the exit, she'd open a door only to find another version of her new body staring back at her. She jolted awake with a gasp, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. Sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains, illuminating the bedroom. For a split second, Naomi thought perhaps it had all been a dream. But as she sat up, the weight on her chest and the silky material against her skin confirmed that nothing had changed. She was still trapped in this strange new body and life. Naomi stumbled to the bathroom, wincing at her reflection. Smeared mascara gave her raccoon eyes, and her hair was a tangled mess. She splashed water on her face, trying to clear the cobwebs from her mind. A shower. That's what she needed. Maybe the hot water would help her think more clearly. She stripped off the nightgown and stepped into the glass-enclosed shower, fumbling with the controls. As the water cascaded over her, Naomi couldn't help but explore her new body. The softness were so foreign, yet undeniably part of her now. How had they done this? It went beyond any plastic surgery or hormone treatments she'd ever heard of. The transformation was too complete, too perfect. There had to be more to it than the woman at the salon had let on. As she lathered shampoo into her long hair, Naomi's mind raced. She needed to find out more about this glamour girl's place. Surely there must be records of other people who had undergone similar transformations. Maybe if she could track some of them down, she could get more answers. But first things first, she needed to figure out the details of this new life she'd been thrust into. Did she have a job? Friends and family beyond the girls from last night? What kind of paper trail existed for this version of Naomi? She stepped out of the shower, wrapping herself in a fluffy towel. The bathroom counter was covered in various creams and cosmetics, neatly organized. Naomi hesitated, then reached for a moisturizer. Might as well keep up appearances while she investigated. As she rubbed the lotion into her skin, a chime sounded from the bedroom. Her phone. Naomi patted out to check it, finding several new text messages. The first was from Tiffany. "Hope you're not too hungover. Don't forget we have yoga at 11. See you there." Naomi groaned. The last thing she felt like doing was contorting her unfamiliar body into yoga poses. But it might be a good opportunity to gather more information about her supposed life. The next message was from an unknown number. "Package delivered. Hope you enjoy your new life. Remember, there's no going back." A chill ran down Naomi's spine. Was this from the people responsible for her transformation? A warning not to dig too deep? She was tempted to reply, demanding answers. But caution won out. Better not to tip her hand just yet. She needed more information before confronting anyone. The final message was from someone labeled Mom in her contacts. "Hi, sweetie. Just checking in. Dad and I can't wait to see you next week for dinner. Love you." Naomi's heart clenched. Did she have a whole new family now, too? How far did this deception go? She set the phone down, feeling overwhelmed. One step at a time, she reminded herself. Get dressed, go to yoga, and start piecing together the clues. The closet was a fashionista's dream, filled with designer labels and perfectly coordinated outfits. Naomi opted for simple black leggings and a loose tank top, figuring it would work for yoga. She pulled her damp hair into a messy bun, foregoing makeup for now. A quick search through her phone revealed the location of the yoga studio, just a few blocks away. Naomi grabbed a small bag, making sure she had her wallet and keys, and headed out. The city looked different in the daylight. Naomi found herself hyper-aware of the way people looked at her as she walked down the street. Men's gazes lingered, some openly appreciative. Women sized her up, a mix of admiration and envy in their eyes. It was disconcerting being the center of attention like this. Naomi quickened her pace, keeping her head down until she reached the yoga studio. Inside, she was greeted by a perky receptionist. "Good morning, Naomi. The girls are already here. You can head on back to the main studio." Naomi nodded, following the sound of voices. She found Tiffany and the others from last night rolling out mats near the back of the room. "There she is," Tiffany called out. "Wasn't sure you'd make it after last night." "Wouldn't miss it," Naomi replied, trying to sound enthusiastic. She unrolled a spare mat next to the others, attempting to mimic their stretches. As they chatted about the previous night's adventures, Naomi listened carefully for any clues about her supposed life. But the conversation remained frustratingly superficial. Gossip about mutual acquaintances and plans for upcoming social events. The yoga class itself was a challenge. Naomi's new body was more flexible than she was used to, but her muscle memory was all wrong. She struggled to hold poses that the others seemed to find effortless. "Don't worry," one of the girls whispered during a particularly difficult balance. "It takes time to adjust after a transformation. You'll get there." Naomi nearly fell over in shock. So casually mentioned, as if total physical transformations were an everyday occurrence. Just how common was this procedure? After class, the group decided to grab smoothies at a nearby juice bar. Naomi tagged along, hoping for a chance to probe for more information. As they settled into a booth with their drinks, she decided to take a risk. "So," she began, trying to keep her tone casual. "I'm still processing everything from the makeover. How long did it take you guys to get used to, all the changes?" The others exchanged glances. "Well," Tiffany said slowly, "everyone's adjustment period is different. For me, it took a couple of months to really feel settled in my new body. But the mental shift, that took longer." Another girl nodded. "Yeah, it's not just the physical stuff. Your whole life changes. New opportunities open up, but you also have to deal with people treating you differently." "Totally worth it, though," the third chimed in. "I mean, look at us now. We're living the dream." Naomi's mind reeled. So it wasn't just her. All of these women had gone through the same process, but why? What was the point of all this? "I guess I'm just wondering." She hesitated, not wanting to seem too suspicious. "Why did we all decide to do this? It's such a huge change." The mood at the table shifted, growing more serious. Tiffany reached out and squeezed Naomi's hand. "Honey, we've all been there. The doubt, the fear, it's normal. But you have to remember why you signed up for this in the first place. You were unhappy with your old life, right? Felt trapped, unfulfilled?" Naomi nodded slowly, playing along. "Right, of course. This is your chance to start over," Tiffany continued. "To become the person you always wanted to be. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Trust me." The others murmured agreement, sharing encouraging smiles. Naomi forced herself to smile back, but inside she felt cold. These women truly believed they had chosen this, that it was some kind of self-improvement, a way to reinvent themselves. But Naomi knew she had never wanted anything like this, which meant her transformation hadn't been voluntary at all. Someone had selected her for this against her will, fabricating the contest win and the signed contract. But why? And who was behind it all? As the conversation moved on to lighter topics, Naomi's mind raced. She needed to find out more about Glamour Girls and whoever was running it. There had to be a way to reverse this, to get her old life back. But she had to be careful. If whoever was behind this realized she was onto them, who knew what they might do? For now, she'd have to keep playing along, gathering information while pretending to be just another satisfied customer. After finishing their smoothies, the group dispersed with promises to meet up again soon. Naomi walked back to her apartment, lost in thought. She had so many questions, but no idea where to start looking for answers. Back in the safety of her new home, Naomi booted up the sleek laptop she'd found on the desk. Time to do some digging. She started with a simple search for Glamour Girls, but the results were disappointing. Just a basic website advertising beauty treatments and makeovers. Nothing about full-body transformations or identity changes. Next, she tried searching for news stories about sudden dramatic physical changes or people going missing and reappearing with new identities. But, again, nothing concrete turned up. Either this operation was incredibly well hidden, or a chilling thought struck her. What if the transformation wasn't just physical? What if her memories had been altered too? How could she be sure that anything she remembered about her old life was real? Naomi shook her head, trying to banish the paranoid thoughts. No, she was certain of who she had been before. The question was, how many others had been changed without their consent? And for what purpose? She was so engrossed in her research that she almost missed the notification popping up on her phone. A calendar reminder. Meeting with Dr. Evans, 3 p.m. Naomi frowned. She didn't remember scheduling any doctor's appointments. But then again, there was a lot about this new life she didn't know. She glanced at the time. Just over an hour until the appointment. Maybe this Dr. Evans could provide some answers. At the very least, a medical professional might be able to shed some light on the physical changes she'd undergone. Decision made, Naomi hurried to get ready. She opted for a simple sundress and low heels, not wanting to draw too much attention. A quick application of minimal makeup, and she was out the door. The address led her to a nondescript office building downtown. Naomi took the elevator to the 5th floor, finding herself in a plush waiting room. The sign on the door read, Dr. Samantha Evans, Transformation Specialist. Naomi's heart raced. This had to be connected to what had happened to her. Maybe now she'd finally get some answers. Naomi, the doctor will see you now. She followed the receptionist down a short hallway, butterflies in her stomach. The office she entered was warmly lit, with comfortable-looking chairs and abstract art on the walls. Behind a large desk sat a woman in her early 50s, salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun. Ah, Naomi. Dr. Evans smiled warmly. How are you settling in? Any issues with the transformation we should discuss? Naomi hesitated. Should she play along, or confront the doctor directly? After a moment's deliberation, she decided on a middle ground. Actually, I'm feeling a bit confused, she said carefully. There's so much I don't understand about what's happened to me. Dr. Evans nodded sympathetically. That's perfectly normal at this stage. The adjustment period can be quite challenging, both physically and mentally. Why don't you tell me what's troubling you? Naomi took a deep breath. Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I fully consented to this transformation. My memories of agreeing to it are hazy at best, and I don't understand how such a complete change is even possible. The doctor's expression grew serious. She studied Naomi for a long moment before speaking. I see. Well, I can assure you that we never perform these procedures without full informed consent. But it's not uncommon for clients to experience some memory disruption as part of the process. It's a side effect of the neural recalibration required for a successful transition. Neural recalibration? Naomi echoed, a chill running down her spine. Yes, Dr. Evans continued. You see, a full transformation isn't just about changing the body. We also have to adjust the brain's mapping to the new physical form, as well as integrating the new identity and backstory. It's a complex process, and some temporary memory issues are to be expected. Naomi's mind reeled. They had altered her brain. How much of what she thought she knew was real and how much was implanted? But why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why go to such extremes? And who's behind all this? Dr. Evans sighed, leaning back in her chair. I understand your confusion, Naomi, but I'm afraid I can't divulge details about our organization or its goals. What I can tell you is that you were carefully selected for this opportunity. Your old life was deemed unsuitable, shall we say. This transformation is a chance for you to reach your full potential. Unsuitable? Naomi's voice rose. Who are you to decide that? I want my old life back. The doctor's expression hardened. I'm afraid that's not possible. The changes are permanent, and your old identity has been completely erased. There is no going back. Naomi felt the room spinning. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some kind of nightmare. Now, Dr. Evans continued, her tone softening slightly. I know this is a lot to process, but I assure you in time you'll come to appreciate the gift you've been given. Many people would kill for the chance you've received. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small bottle of pills. These will help with any lingering discomfort or anxiety. Take one before bed each night. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you need further support during your adjustment period. Naomi took the bottle numbly, her mind still reeling from the doctor's revelations. She stumbled out of the office in a daze, barely registering the concerned looks from other patients in the waiting room. Out on the street, she gulped in deep breaths of air, trying to calm her racing heart. What was she supposed to do now? Her entire existence had been erased and replaced without her consent. She was trapped in a body and life that weren't her own, with no way to return to who she had been. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city streets, Naomi wandered aimlessly. Her mind churned with questions and fears. Who was behind this organization? How many others had they transformed against their will? And what was their ultimate goal? She found herself in a small park, collapsing onto a bench. Tears threatened to spill over as the full weight of her situation hit her. Everything she had known and loved was gone. Her family, her friends, her dreams and aspirations, all erased and replaced with this fabricated life. A jogger passed by, giving her a concerned look. Naomi realized she must look a mess, makeup smeared by unshed tears, her dress rumpled from her aimless wandering. She took a shaky breath, trying to pull herself together. She couldn't fall apart. Not now. If she was going to find a way out of this nightmare, she needed to keep a clear head. Naomi pulled out her phone, staring at the unfamiliar background image. A photo of her new self with the girls from last night, all smiles at some rooftop bar. It felt like looking at a stranger's life. On impulse, she opened the Maps app and searched for her old address. To her surprise, it came up. An apartment building across town. Her heart raced. Could some trace of her old life still exist? Before she could talk herself out of it, Naomi hailed a cab. As they wove through evening traffic, she rehearsed what she might say if she encountered her old neighbors or landlord. Would anyone recognize her? Or would she find strangers living in what used to be her home? The cab pulled up in front of the familiar building. Naomi paid the driver and stepped out, her legs shaky beneath her. Nothing had changed. Same faded brick exterior, same creaky front steps. But it felt like a lifetime had passed since she last stood here. She approached the call box, scanning the names. Her heart sank as she saw an unfamiliar name next to her old apartment number. Of course, they would have erased all traces of her existence. Just as she was about to turn away, defeated, the front door opened. An elderly woman Naomi recognized as her former neighbor emerged, struggling with a bag of garbage. "Oh, hello there," the woman said, peering at Naomi curiously. "Can I help you with something, dear?" Naomi's throat went dry. This was her chance to make contact with someone from her old life. But what could she say? How could she possibly explain? I used to live here," she managed finally. In apartment 3B, I was just nostalgic, I guess. Wanted to see the old place. The woman's brow furrowed. 3B? But that nice young man's been living there for years now. I don't recall. She trailed off, studying Naomi more closely. A flicker of recognition passed across her face, there and gone so quickly Naomi almost thought she'd imagined it. You know, you remind me of someone, the woman said slowly. A girl who lived here a while back. What did you say your name was? Naomi's heart pounded. It's Naomi Parker. The old woman's eyes widened. That's it? But no, it couldn't be. You look so different. And Naomi moved away quite suddenly. Must be a year ago now. A year? Naomi fought to keep her expression neutral, even as her mind raced. She'd been gone for that long without realizing it? Right, of course, she said, forcing a laugh. Silly me, getting my dates mixed up. Well, thank you for indulging my nostalgia. I should be going. She turned to leave, but the woman called out after her. Wait, you really do look so familiar. Are you perhaps related to the Naomi who used to live here? A cousin, maybe? Naomi hesitated. This might be her only chance to learn more about what had happened to her old life. She turned back, mustering a smile. Naomi's heart raced as she grasped at the lifeline the elderly woman had unknowingly thrown her. Yes, I'm Naomi's sister, she repeated, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. I'm in town for a visit and thought I'd swing by her old place. Nostalgia, you know? The woman's face lit up. Oh, how lovely. I'm Mrs. Abernathy. I lived next door to your sister for years. Such a sweet girl. We were all so sad when she moved away so suddenly. Did she ever tell you what happened? Naomi's pulse quickened. This was her chance to learn more about her own disappearance. Actually, she didn't give us many details, she said carefully. It all happened so fast. I was hoping maybe the neighbors might know more. Mrs. Abernathy's brow furrowed. Well, it was the strangest thing. One day she was here, going about her normal routine. The next, poof, gone without a trace. Left all her things behind, too. The landlord had to clear out the apartment eventually. A chill ran down Naomi's spine. They'd taken her right out of her own life, erasing her so completely that even her belongings were left as if she'd simply vanished into thin air. That is odd, Naomi managed, fighting to keep her voice steady. Did anyone report her missing? The old woman nodded. Oh, yes. Her work called when she didn't show up for a few days. The police came round, but they didn't seem too concerned. Said something about her bank records showing she'd bought a plane ticket. Assumed she'd just up and left on some adventure. Mrs. Abernathy leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I always thought there was more to the story. Naomi wasn't the type to just run off without a word. No, Naomi agreed softly. She wasn't! A moment of silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Naomi's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of information. Whoever was behind her transformation had covered their tracks well, fabricating evidence of her voluntary departure. Mrs. Abernathy straightened up suddenly, her eyes widening. Oh, I just remembered. There was a package that came for Naomi a few days after she disappeared. Return address was someplace called Glamour Girls. I held onto it for a while, hoping she'd come back. But when the apartment was cleared out, I'm afraid it got tossed with everything else. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. Glamour Girls. The same name that had been on the makeover certificate. This was the connection she'd been looking for. Do you remember anything else about the package? She pressed. What it looked like? How big it was? The old woman shook her head. I'm sorry, dear. My memory's not what it used to be, but I do recall thinking it was odd. Felt like there was hardly anything inside. Just a bit of paper, maybe? A contract, perhaps? Or instructions for what Naomi was supposed to do next? She cursed silently, frustrated at the lost opportunity for answers. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Naomi said, forcing a smile. It's nice to hear about Naomi's life here. I'm sure she'd be touched to know her neighbors still think of her. Mrs. Abernathy beamed. Of course, dear. Oh, would you like to come up for a cup of tea? I'm sure I have some old photos of the building picnics. Naomi's in a few of them. Naomi hesitated. The temptation to see images of her old self was almost overwhelming, but she couldn't risk spending too much time here. What if someone connected to her transformation was watching? I'm so sorry, but I really should be going, she said regretfully. Another time, perhaps? The old woman nodded, looking a bit disappointed. Of course, I understand. You young people are always so busy. Well, it was lovely meeting you, dear. Do give Naomi my best when you talk to her, won't you? I will, Naomi promised, the lie sitting heavy in her stomach. As she walked away from her old building, Naomi's mind whirled. She had confirmation now that her disappearance had been carefully orchestrated, but she was no closer to understanding why she'd been chosen for this transformation or how to reverse it. The sun had fully set now, the streets illuminated by the harsh glow of streetlights. Naomi shivered, realizing she'd left her jacket back at the new apartment. She needed to regroup, to process everything she'd learned. A text alert chimed on her phone. It was Tiffany. Hey girl, we're hitting up that new rooftop bar downtown. Meet us there in 30... Naomi's first instinct was to decline. She was in no mood for socializing, not with everything churning in her mind. But then she paused, considering. These women, whatever their true connection to her might be, were her best link to understanding this new world she'd been thrust into. And right now, she needed all the allies and information she could get. Sounds great, she typed back. See you soon. As she hailed another cab, Naomi steeled herself for the evening ahead. She would play the part of the carefree, newly transformed woman enjoying her glamorous life. All the while, she'd be watching and listening, gathering every scrap of information she could. Somewhere in this web of lies and altered identities, there had to be a thread she could pull to unravel the whole thing. And Naomi was determined to find it, no matter what it took. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.